This guy is a white mage so painfully humble, he probably apologized to the floor for stepping on it. Turns out, the dude everyone thought was a background character is actually a god-tier mage. Lloyd was a little boy when Merlin found and took him in. She started training him on different skills. Lloyd tries his best with each one, but it's obviously not good enough as she doesn't fail to show him he still has a long way to go. But Lloyd doesn't give up. He's ready to work even harder, which makes Merlin quite happy. One day, Merlin falls ill. Lloyd feels bad and heals her perfectly. Finally, one thing he's good at. Maybe he shouldn't have done it so soon, because Merlin immediately gets back to rigorous training like nothing happened. Time goes by, and one day, Merlin is sitting alone, staring at a spell book she doesn't look happy about. When Lloyd comes to invite her for dinner, the book falls and he helps her pick it up, but it immediately glows and the content gets downloaded into his brain. Merlin realizes that Lloyd has the potential to be a chosen one too. However, she is determined to ensure he won't repeat her past mistakes, and with a kiss on the forehead, she casts a spell on him. She doesn't want him to ever grow overconfident in his abilities. Merlin starts training Lloyd to be a white mage, someone who uses helpful magic for the good of others. She shows him what actual healing power should look like, leaving him in awe. Merlin also teaches him about magic but refuses to teach him about ancient magic. They continue training during the day. Merlin is disappointed that Lloyd is still lacking, and he agrees to work harder. At night, she teaches him about Magistone. It turns things around it into Magistone as well. As months turn into years, Lloyd grows older. One day, Merlin decides it's time for his first practical test and takes him to a forest. She hands him a dagger and instructs him to return home within a week, expecting him to survive using his magic. Then she hurriedly leaves him behind. Lloyd is too stunned to speak, but a wolf snaps him out of it. He flees for his life, which is the only thing he can do at this point since his combat magic skills suck. While hiding in a tree, Lloyd knows he can't defeat monsters with a white mage's spells, so he makes the decision to run away, but the exit is quite far, so he enhances different skills for survival. No, they aren't fighting skills, just skills for finding food and running faster. Eventually, Lloyd makes it back home completely exhausted. Merlin is satisfied. More time passes, and Lloyd grows even more. One day, while organizing the house, he stumbles upon a book about the city and asks if he can borrow it. Merlin agrees. Meanwhile, things haven't changed much. Our boy still has so much to do. From chores to helping Merlin out with her work, he barely even has time to eat or sleep, and curiosity about the city is eating at him. One day, Merlin doesn't find him at home. Lloyd had secretly taken off like a runaway teenager on his way to freedom. Once in the city, he realizes that it really is different. He quickly spends his last penny on a snack and goes broke. Talk about zero survival skills. However, the universe favors him and an opportunity hits him in the face. Literally, someone is recruiting adventurers. Meanwhile, someone is spying on him. Lloyd joins a party on a quest to defeat a Cyclops. He stands at the back being useless while the other members cast spells and fight bravely until the leader, Alan, lands the final strike, defeating the monster. Lloyd is relieved, but Rena doesn't look pleased by him. The team returns to the city, with Alan being celebrated as a hero. At the end of the day, Alan shares the gains, giving Lloyd the smallest share as a D ranker. Lloyd isn't bothered. He declines Alan's invitation to celebrate and leaves. The other team members are visibly annoyed. Meanwhile, Will, the spy, reports back to Merlin that Lloyd has been hired by the hero's party. Merlin feels it's about time Lloyd saw real combat. She says he has nothing to fear as long as he's not overconfident. Will asks if she still regrets what happened. Back then, the demon lord sacrificed himself to try and steal the spellbook, all while taking Merlin and her team down with him. But Sybil used ancient magic to revive everyone at the cost of his own life. The hero's team seems like such a big deal. They have taken down powerful monsters and earned quite a reputation. Alan is the aura farming leader, while Rena is the bookworm. While discussing, they realize that they've been feeling stronger recently. Alan feels even more proud and doesn't see the need for training anymore. Somewhere along the borders, the guards get jumped by a monster. When Alan hears about it, he brushes it off as child's play and quickly gathers his team. Lloyd tracks down exactly where the golem is hiding and they take it out. But of course, some shady-looking guy shows up and summons an even bigger one. Lloyd notices the mage and the Magistone in his staff. He casts a spell, tells Lulu to shoot the mage, and has Mia grab the staff. He seals it like it's nothing, and even Mia's caught off guard. Alan, realizing Lloyd is stealing his moment, ignores his warning and charges in anyway. Lloyd saves Alan from getting flattened, but Alan insists on finishing the job himself and takes out the golem. Back at home, in a really petty way, Alan kicks Lloyd out of the party while lounging on his throne-like chair, calls him lazy and an eyesore. And because Lloyd has the self-esteem of a damp towel, he just agrees he's not strong enough and leaves. Lloyd's dismissal from the guild replays in his mind. His self-esteem has gone down even more. A group of adventurers raid a bandit group, an A-rank quest. With teamwork, they easily take down the bandit group. The bandit group leader, however, summons a golem. Yui takes matters into her hands and tries attacking the golem, but her strike does nearly nothing. Barely escaping the golem's hit, she requests an enhancement from their mage Clum. The situation isn't quite clocking to Clum as she isn't standing on business. She's a little absent-minded, not until Yui calls for her attention again. With the physical enhancement spell cast, Yui defeats the golem. The bandits are completely defeated and the quest is over. Clum apologizes for her absent-mindedness, but Yuki understands since Clum has some issues she's going through. Lloyd's search for a new guild is futile as the white mage spot is all filled up. As he hopelessly continues his journey, he overhears Yui desperately in need need of a white mage. However, her request can't be met since there's no white mage available. Fortunately, as Lloyd arrives there, Yui gets directed to him. She's all hyper and doesn't really give him enough space to talk apart from answering if he's a mage and is free. After confirming this, she excitedly drags him to the others: Dagas the shield bearer, Frost the archer, Silica the mage, and she, Yui the swordsman and leader. Lloyd isn't quite in the know of everything going on. He didn't even say he was going to join in. It's like when Luffy wants you on his crew. The whole team is against going on with their next quest as they don't think Lloyd can replace Clum, and they're really relying on Clum's role in the team. But Yui explains the need to go through with the quest, stating that someone needs help. When Lloyd asks, they explain that they can't leave the quest for another team since the quest is an A rank 1. Other A rank and higher rank teams are occupied with their own quests, leaving them, an S rank team, as the best option. They can't just borrow someone from another team either, as adventurers only work with their registered teammates. Lloyd would love to help, but remembering what Alan said, he believes that he isn't good enough. Yui mentions that as long as Lloyd is a good white mage, then they have nothing to worry about. The only way to find out is to test him, and they go straight to that. The only jolly person here is Yui, who asks Lloyd to cast enhancement spells on each of them. Lloyd is all gloomy, feeling like he's going to disappoint them. The rest of the team just hopelessly witness this. What Yui asks of Lloyd isn't a common feat for white mages, so their expectation is basically at 0. They just want to get this over with, asking Lloyd to just give up if he isn't able to pull the task off and not give false hope. Lloyd is finally on it. Summoning a staff to their surprise, he casts different spells for each of them. They're all surprised, and Yui asks out of curiosity where Lloyd's staff came from. He explains that he uses a storage spell. They don't even notice he had cast the spell until he asks. Yui puts her enhancement to the test, cutting down a tree in a single sword swing. They're all stunned. As they freeze in shock, Lloyd casually mentions that he had cast 5 different spells. They're even more odd. Lloyd continues that he thought Yui expected more, as just casting an enhancement spell is too easy. Everyone is more shocked, too stunned to move or talk. As usual, Lloyd thinks less of himself, feeling like he couldn't cut it as their white mage, and apologizes before taking his leave. Lloyd doesn't waste any time in leaving, but they all yell for him to wait up. The surprises continue as he mentions that he was with the hero's party, Alan's team. Lloyd says he was kicked out for lack of power, although the rest of the team can clearly see that Lloyd is crazy powerful. Regardless of being a white mage, he's really impressive. He says they're better off getting back their previous mage than adding him to the team. Yui explains that Clum has been taking care of her sister, who is ill. The weight of doing that and working wore her down, so she asked to leave the party for good. Going through with regular quests isn't much of an issue to them, but the A rank quests would definitely be troublesome, which is why they need a replacement. They're all worried about Clum and see her as their friend regardless of whether she's on the team or not. Lloyd expresses his jealousy under his breath. He inquires about the illness Clum's sister has, and Yui doesn't really know much but mention that it turns the body into magistone. This rings a bell to Lloyd, and remembering what he learned about it during his time with his master, he wants to help. He asks Yui to show him to Clum's place. After they arrive and are settled in, Clum explains her sister's situation to Lloyd, who asked she used to go on adventures with her sister, who unfortunately got injured on a quest one day and went unconscious. She isn't sure if the injury was inflicted by a monster. She asked to show her sister to them as it'll better explain her symptoms to Lloyd. The room is clouded with unpleasant mana as they enter. Clum explains that her sister is turning slowly into magistone. Lloyd steps up like his low self-esteem went on a vacation. He believes he'll be able to cure Clum's sister. Clum finds this unbelievable, as an ordinary white mage couldn't possibly pull off a cure when high-class healers couldn't. From Lloyd's speculation, Clum's sister got injured, and the injury got infected by mana, which is what is causing the transformation. When Clum attests to that fact, he asks to see the wound. He begins his healing procedure, pulling off things that are unbelievable even to Clum. After a series of impressive spell casting and cool stuff, Lloyd successfully heals Clum's sister. He's quite exhausted and can't aura farm, although this is a perfect moment. Sun Jinwoo would though. Clum is overjoyed to see her sister fine again, shedding tears like Nami if she hit a billion berry jackpot. Clum expresses her gratitude and shares that she plans to go on adventures with her sister again. Yui understands her feelings, and they say their goodbyes. Just before Lloyd departs, Clum entrusts the team to him. However, Lloyd responds that he isn't officially a member yet, as he still lacks the necessary power. It's surprising for him to say this, especially after the impressive feat he just accomplished. Lloyd and the others gather to feast. They're all happy for Clum, thanking Lloyd for his efforts. But it seems Lloyd's low self-esteem is back in the game as he doesn't take any glory. Lloyd is already feeling an entirely different energy in this team than in his previous party. He finally makes the decision to join them, fidgetly asking in. Yui happily accepts him as well as the others. Yui suggests a celebration bash to welcome Lloyd to the team. During the celebration, Lloyd tastes the food, and his taste buds ascend to the spirit realm, while the others think it's quite mid, giving cafeteria food. This leads Lloyd to question what he has been eating since childhood. He shares that when he lived with his master, she would cook random leaves, mushrooms from the forest, or simply roast meat from beasts. They basically ate like cavemen, which is why he started cooking their meals himself, but he couldn't achieve this level of flavor. The others inquire about his master. Lloyd explains a bit about her skills, noting that she is more combat-oriented but is still way better than him in support magic. Silica expresses interest in learning from her, but Lloyd quickly stops her. He remembers what he went through and doesn't want anyone else to experience such. Frost guesses that his master might have been harsh, but Lloyd defends her by saying saying that she could also be kind, though he can only recall one instance of her kindness. Yui brings up the strategy meeting for their next quest, noting that they need to fill Lloyd in first. Dagus explains the mission, which involves defeating a pack of monsters destroying farms. The worst part is that the pack consists of different species of monsters from unknown origins. Lloyd has never heard of different species teaming up like this, but Dagus and Yui are determined to face them to protect the people. They continue discussing their plan, assigning major roles and other support roles. However, they lack full details from the quest info and plan to figure it out on site. Silica feels excited about Lloyd's support magic, but he asks her not to get her hopes up too high. This earns him some "are you serious" stares from the others. Yui encourages him to be a bit more confident, but Lloyd reminds them of when he was kicked out of the heroes party for lacking power. Cross says he prefers people like Lloyd who are modest over those who are bossy just because they are strong. Everyone agrees with him. Eventually, they call it a day and prepare to retire for the night ahead of their quest. As Lloyd heads in a different direction, Dagus stops him and asks why he isn't sleeping at the inn. Lloyd responds that he is broke. Where was he going to sleep? Under character development? Anyways, Dagus then offers him a bag of money. Lloyd the modest refuses it, but Dagus insists, saying it will be deducted from Lloyd's reward for the quest. Relieved, Lloyd accepts it and promises to work hard. Sitting in his room later, he realizes how kind the people in this party are and resolves to work hard to prove useful to them. In the morning, Yui joins the others outside and notices their lack of packs compared to her, Dora the Explorer backpack. Cross explains that Lloyd is using his storage magic for their gear. Excited, Yui hands over her items and Lloyd stores them away. Everyone is impressed, and Lloyd informs them that they can learn to use this magic too. He explains that everyone is born with at least a little mana and can eventually learn to expand their storage capacity, which will take some training. They're excited to learn, and with that energy of freedom from heavy baggage, they set off on their quest. As they journey, they reach a mountain where the Magocracy, the nation of demons, lies on the other side. Dagus mentions that they are lying low for now, but no one knows when they might make another attempt to conquer the continent. Next, they come across a shaky bridge. Most of them feel frightened, so Yui starts telling jokes to distract them from their fear. Guess what? Lloyd doesn't know how to tell a joke. He says his master never taught him that skill. Nobody laughs though. Cross explains what a joke is, and Yui assures him that it's not a big deal. She asks another question, expecting silly answers. Lloyd tries hard, but eventually gives up and apologizes for failing. The others reassure him that he did a good job and can improve, helping him feel better. Meanwhile, someone in the forest is cooking some dark magic. Lloyd's party arrives at their camp point earlier than expected. He takes out the necessary materials and they begin setting up. After a while, Yui wants to go wash off, but Daga stops her, saying there is still work to be done, like fetching firewood. Lloyd offers to do it, and Yui appreciates his help, thanking him before running off with Silica. While fetching firewood, Lloyd hears a scream and rushes over to investigate. He finds a basilisk approaching the defenseless girls in the water. Quickly, he runs to help, distracting the monster long enough for the girls to reach the shore. He hands them their weapons and casts enhancement spells on them. Yui takes the first strike, followed by Silica's fireball attack, and the monster is defeated with just those two strikes, surprising the girls. Yui thanks Lloyd. Soon, everyone gathers to learn storage magic. Lloyd demonstrates the skill as poorly as his teacher did. They stare at him like he just invented math, but try it anyway. After a while of fruitless toiling, they still can't do it. Lloyd apologizes for his terrible teaching, but Dagus and Cross encourage him not to feel bad. Silica says the word storage and finally succeeds. They realize that, unlike Lloyd, they need to use incantations, and Silica tries again, successfully storing her weapon. At night, Lloyd and Yui are still awake. Sitting by the fire, Yui thanks him for joining their party. Lloyd asks her why she is so focused on this quest. Yui explains that it reminds her of her hometown. Cue the tragic piano OST. They were attacked by monsters when she was a child. She was the sole survivor of that attack, so she feels she cannot simply stand by when she hears about the monsters. She wants to help the people in the nearby settlement. Just then, Lloyd puts a finger to his lips to shush her. He summons his weapon and asks her to wake the others. They all hide and watch as a herd of giant bug monsters passes by. Lloyd notices more monsters coming their way and quickly signals everyone to retreat. They take slow steps backward, and of all things to ruin stealth, one crunchy twig. The monster's ears perk like, "Did someone say free protein?" and they immediately start chasing. The team runs for their lives but soon find themselves surrounded. They pull out their weapons to protect themselves from the monster's webs. Silica's staff gets snatched away, leaving them vulnerable. Lloyd turns on boss mood, main character energy activated. He casts a spell to hold the monsters in place, then instructs Yui to go on the offensive, which she does, inflicting terrible damage. While she's doing her awesome thing, he directs Cross and Silica to join in. The bugs are quickly exterminated. After the battle, Lloyd realizes what he did and apologizes for giving orders, probably his trauma from the heroes party. Bro doesn't want to be kicked out again, but Dagus is chill and says he was of great help and is cut out for it. Yui chimes in, saying they'll be counting on him from now on, and the others agree. In the morning, Lloyd stands like a proud teacher, watching his teammates successfully use their storage abilities. He's holding back tears like they grow up so fast. They continue their journey, led by Yui, the self-acclaimed leader. Meanwhile, Lloyd wonders where those monsters were heading. Lloyd sits by the fire on a night watch, brooding. He remembers the pack of monsters they encountered on their journey, and how the monsters moved unusually, as if they were all heading somewhere. In light of this, he figures they need to be more careful. Just then, Yui and Silica approach Lloyd. They are worried about him losing sleep to keep solo night watches. He has been on it like he's planning to get a Batman streak. Lloyd explains that it really is no big deal, and that he's used to staying up all night. Lloyd wants the others to conserve their energy in case anything happens. He says it's the best he can do to help, and as Yui is about to protest, Silica stops her almost as if she understands Lloyd. Silica makes Lloyd assure that if things get tough, he'll let them know, and he agrees. Meanwhile, Dagus and Cross watch silently, still concerned about Lloyd. The next morning, they continue their journey in the forest. Lloyd makes a stop and uses a search spell to scout the area. On seeing this, Yui is curious about what Lloyd did, and even more, so surprised when Lloyd tells her. Her reaction mirrors Lloyd's as he doesn't see it as impressive. The dude is on to some nonchalant stuff, not because he's trying to be cool, but because his self-esteem is literally non-existent. Lloyd explains that he can't cast a spell over a large perimeter, but he'll conduct it regularly to cover the little areas around them as they go. Yui commends him for it and expresses her concern for him putting too much load on himself. Lloyd, on the other hand, states that he's okay with it. Yui's face lit up after a few seconds of gloominess as she asks in anticipation if there's anything they can do to help Lloyd. But Lloyd is blunt, pointing out that there isn't. Yui's face is back to the default gloominess. It's like watching a caterer approach and then walk past you with a plate of food at an occasion. You're smiling 1 second until you realize they're not coming for you. It's night again, and Lloyd is out again like the Dark Knight, keeping watch. Yui is displeased that Lloyd doesn't trust them enough. Discussing with Silica, she expresses that Lloyd is good to have around as he's very useful even though he doesn't know it, but it isn't cool that he can't count on them. Silica understands Lloyd and explains to Yuri that everyone has their own pace. She further mentions that just like how she and Yui weren't close from the start and eventually became close friends, Lloyd also needs some time. They both acknowledge the mysteriousness of Lloyd's behavior, his abilities, low self-esteem, the reason he works so hard, and the fact that he knows little about the world, yet knows so much about every other thing. As Yui wonders what kind of life Lloyd lived before, Silica mentions that Lloyd would open up eventually, hence they don't need to push him too hard. Yui finally gets the idea, and thanks Silica for the good talk. Silica mentions that she might be wrong, as Lloyd is pretty unusual. Our Batman is still on his night watch by the fire when Dagus comes to him. Dagus asks Lloyd to go with him, as he has something to show Lloyd. Inasmuch as Lloyd would want that, he mentions that if he leaves, there'd be no one to keep watch. Just then, Cross pops up, offering to take the watch duty while Lloyd is gone. Lloyd has no other choice but to follow along. They head into the forest where Dagus sets up something he calls clappers. He explains to Lloyd that the clappers will help alert when monsters are around, as they are engineered to make loud noises. Clap when touched. Just as AI is about to steal jobs, the clappers are wrestling for Lloyd's. Dagus mentions that Lloyd should have some rest. No, Batman doesn't rest. Lloyd is skeptical about this, stating that it isn't necessary as he can't cast search spells if he's asleep. He's still hell-bent on keeping watch until Dagus's tone switches up as he asks Lloyd if he can't trust the rest of them. Lloyd quickly tries to explain that he doesn't doubt the functionality of the clappers, he just wants to be extra cautious. Dagus's question is in general and not only about the clappers. As Lloyd says that he trusts them, Dagus asks why he leaves them out of things like the night watch. Because he's Batman? Dagus points out that it does look like a sign of untrustworthiness. Lloyd's drive to work hard and be useful so as not to be a problem is all as a result of his past with the Heroes Guild and his master. However, Dagus tells him to go ahead and be a problem. Oh, what Stitch wouldn't do to hear this said to him. Dagus explains that the purpose of their party is to help each other with the things they couldn't do themselves. Obviously, there'll be times where they cause problems for one another, even so, it doesn't matter. He asks Lloyd to rely on his friends more. Lloyd is genuinely surprised as it has never crossed his mind to rely on them. This leaves Dagus wondering what part of the world Lloyd is from. Lloyd asks to confirm if it really is okay for someone like him who is lacking in power to rely on others, and Dagus corrects that no one on the team thinks he lacks in power. With this, one more time, Dagus urges him to have some rest and they head away. Cross does the watch for the nights as Lloyd finally turns in for the night. He lies in bed and thinks for a bit. Dagus's sermon really got to him as he ponders the word friend. The next morning, Lloyd approaches Yui, and although he finds some trouble saying it, he asks her to help him get some water. Yui is surprised at first, but her reaction is followed by excitement. As they both head out to get water, the others watch happily, as this is a good change on Lloyd's part. At a shady-looking mansion, a subordinate reports to his master their plan is in place as they're done setting up magistones in the respective positions as ordered. This is pleasing to the master, Lord Michel, who says something about a path being open as he aligns specific coordinates on his map. When he asks, his subordinate reports that all the high-ranked adventurers have their hands full as planned, but only the heroes party and a few other low-ranked adventurers are available. Inasmuch as Michel had hoped to keep them away, it can't be helped as they only act on the request of the nation and no random questions which would have worked on them as a decoy, luring them away. Michel is okay with this anyway, as he anticipated seeing how the heroes party will fare on their own. He sends a message to his client through the subordinate, stating that it's time. He ends with a supposedly mischievous smirk. Lloyd and the party continue their journey in the forest. After some time, everyone gets weirded out, as there's something off about the forest. It is alarming that they haven't spotted a single monster, and considering that they're deep in the forest and not on a main path, it's very unnatural. Yui wonders if Lloyd is doing anything to repel all the monsters, but Lloyd disaffirms. To search further, Lloyd expands his scouting spell, and when he does, he picks up on a pack of monsters far up ahead, cross-checks the map, and mentions that the monsters would be around the farm they're headed for, but Yui cuts in as she's still stunned from the fact that Lloyd can search that far, considering he said he couldn't. It's about 10 kilometers from where they are to where the monsters are, and Lloyd doesn't still see it as being impressive. Lloyd tries to justify that it also uses up much mana, but it doesn't help with Yui's reaction. Dagus draws the attention back to the issue at hand, and Cross and Silica advise Yui not to think too deeply about it. They focus on how to get to their location as Lloyd stands there wondering if he did anything wrong. They meet the abnormally large horde of monsters on arrival. Lloyd points out that it's weird that this is the only location his magic has detected monsters in. The forest should be swarming with monsters, and seeing as there's no sign of fighting, they wonder why the monsters would give up their territory to come together at that point. The owners of the farm there had been injured by a monster and evacuated to their son's house in the city, so Lloyd's intentions of asking about what is going on won't work out. Just then, something catches Cross's attention from the midst of the monsters. It isn't that visible, and the others can barely see. Lloyd casts a spell for his sight and is now able to see it, a magic-emitting object. He casts the same spell for the others, and they too can see now. It's a strange-looking magistone with mana flowing around it. Lloyd recognizes it, stating that it is the mana of a beast folk who, according to his master, can cast spells to control monsters. Just then, he senses something, and using his searching spells, he figures there's another horde of monsters coming their way. There are varieties of monsters in large numbers, and although Lloyd suspects for a brief moment that it's a setup for them, he figures the process is too roundabout. As they contemplate whether or not to retreat and let the farm be destroyed or stay back and fight to their doom, Lloyd suggests they stay as he has a plan. That being said, he mentions that they, the Suicide Squad, need to do something about the Magistone. The team's third-rate version of Uryu Ishida from Bleach is up to the task. The only hiccup is that, although he can hit the Magistone from this distance, his shot would have little effect. But Lloyd has this covered as he casts a spell on Cross just as the shot is taken. As the arrow hits the target, the Magistone gets shattered and the Beast Folk spell is broken. But this doesn't stop the horde of vicious monsters from approaching. It's a face-off, and the monsters come at them head-on. They all wait on Lloyd's call to engage as it's his plan. Lloyd makes them hold their ground even as the monsters are up close, subconsciously pulling the Sukana act in Shibuya. They trust him enough not to move unless on his mark. Just then, he gives the order of attack to Silica, who creates flames that grow massively thanks to Lloyd. Like it's a grill fest, the monsters get caught in the flames, and I bet they rival KFC in crispiness. This isn't enough to take them all out, so Lloyd asks Silica to keep going and then switch to wind magic after a while. Lloyd goes over to assist Cross. Since the smoke from the flames are making it hard for the flying monsters to see, Lloyd and Cross seize the opportunity. Lloyd uses a spell to enhance Cross's vision like Usopp's observation hockey, and he takes down the flying monsters. With this, Lloyd alerts Silica of the final phase of their plan, but Silica is exhausted and out of mana. Lloyd asks her to hold his hand and then transfers some mana into her. It does make him lightheaded, as he had transferred a large amount at a go. Silica gets on with her spell and makes it rain, which quenches the fire. Silica is out of mana, but not to worry as she's done with her part. It's now up to Yui and Dagus, who are sure finish up what is left of the monsters. Lloyd is worn out, and as he lays down resting, he feels he still has a long way to go in improving himself. Classic Lloyd mindset. Claire, a beast folk, gets snatched by Grist, a demon. Celian tries to play hero but flops harder than a low-budget anime adaptation. He's mad, real mad. He vows to get Grist. Lloyd realizes that they've been tricked. He informs the others that the quest was likely a trap designed to send them away from Ishtar and delay their return by using the monsters. The others agree, recalling that the quest was quite strange, and they grow concerned about Ishtar. Yui suggests they hurry back. Lloyd finishes replenishing his energy and returns his portions to storage. He casts speed enhancement spells on everyone, and they begin running home. At the demon mansion, Grist finds Michelle chilling. He informs him that their vanguard is descending on Ishtar, and that the plan is proceeding smoothly. Michelle believes it will succeed thanks to Claire. Grist intends to keep using her in the future. Michelle couldn't care less. Man's just working for pay. Meanwhile, Claire is chained inside a cell. Michelle feeds her some portions before using her powers again, leaving Claire feeling defeated. Back in the forest, Lloyd and his team are speeding toward Ishtar. They take a quick break to replenish their energy. Dagus says that at this pace, they should arrive at Ishtar in no time. Silica expresses concern for Lloyd's health. Maintaining enhancement magic requires a lot of mana. Lloyd reassures her that one can reduce mana consumption once they master it. Then he casually drops the trauma bomb. His master once pulled a survive or perish training arc by abandoning him in the woods. He had to survive using support magic and cast all kinds of enhancement spells. When Yui comments on his difficult experience, Lloyd downplays it, calling it a common training exercise, especially due to his inexperience. Yui and Silica, understandably alarmed, insist that no, actually, that's not normal. Lloyd is genuinely surprised. In his mind, he assumes they mean that his training was below average. Of course it was, because when your self-esteem is held together with duct tape and denial, nearly getting unalived in the forest feels like day one orientation. To him, it makes perfect sense that they're S-rank adventurers and he's not. He feels he hasn't received enough training to match their skill level, which frustrates Yui and Silica. As they prepare to continue their journey, Lloyd uses uses his search magic to scout the area before they resume running. Suddenly, Lloyd senses something and pulls his brakes. A chain reaction crash follows. They ask what's wrong, and he explains that he feels something strange. Although he isn't sure what it is, he has a bad feeling and suggests they go ahead to Ishtar while he checks it out first. However, they refuse to leave him alone. Yui insists they will accompany him since he can't fight alone if something happens. Lloyd realizes she's right, and they remind him they're a team. It's only natural to look out for one another. He feels grateful. As Lloyd searches, 4 demons are already busy doing, well, demon stuff. Lloyd tracks the energy he senses to a hut. He picks up on the demon's presence and someone else's. He recalls that demons aren't allowed to enter the continent's 3 major nations. The others find it odd that he isn't already familiar with demons launching invasions, but Lloyd explains he has no memories from his childhood. By the time his master took him in, the war was over. They realize he's a war orphan and feel bad for him. He asks them not to worry and returns to focusing on the demon situation. Cross suggests they report what they found to the knights once they return. Lloyd believes they need more information before reporting it. It's dangerous, but he senses the same mana from the Magistone. Dagus realizes the demons must be connected to whoever had that horde attack the farm. They decide to investigate further since Ishtar's safety is at stake. They quietly move into position, lining up by the window like a trained special unit. Cross peeks inside. Surprise, there's no one there. Lloyd scouts the area and discovers the demons are underground. He enhances their skills before they engage. They don't even bother finding an entrance and just use Silica's earth magic to drop in on them. Yui jumps into action, questioning what they're doing. One of the demons attacks, but Yui easily swats it and Cross pins the demon. They hide behind a rock, which is useless as Silica disintegrates it. The demons launch another attack, but Dagus protects Silica with a shield. One of the demons escapes while the others are defeated. The escaped demon seals Claire in a cocoon and makes a run for it when he's found. Lloyd orders Yui to go around and cut him off. He senses a powerful magic signature inside the cocoon and asks the rest of the party to surround the demon. In no time, the demon is surrounded. Lloyd demands his surrender, but the demon refuses and summons an attack instead. Lloyd blocks it, but one of the attacks strikes the demon, knocking him out. Lloyd's party quickly lowers the cocoon and opens it, surprised to find Claire inside. They bring her into the hut and wait anxiously. Since they couldn't get any information from the demon, she is their only source of knowledge about what has been happening. Cross points out that Claire can't speak in her current state, and Dagus asks if Lloyd can heal her. Lloyd agrees to try and then pulls up some incredible healing magic. Yui recalls that he cured Sylvie's Magistone transformation. Lloyd casually mentions that he has made some improvements to the magic. The group is shocked as that's not a normal thing to do. Silica tells him that it's impressive to tweak magic. Lloyd is surprised. His master often forced him to help her do it, so he assumed it was normal. Eventually, Claire wakes up. The girl barely opens her eyes before Yui gets in her face, firing up questions at the speed of light. Claire stares blankly, probably wondering if she's been rescued or kidnapped twice. She manages to say her name, but Yui hears wrong and passes the wrong name to the others, so they now know her as Kureha. Claire, lacking the energy to correct her, simply goes along with it. Yui then inquires why she was being held captive by the demons. Claire hesitates to answer, so Lloyd explains that they are adventurers and briefs her on their quest and discoveries. He guesses that she can use magic to command monsters, to which Claire confirms is indeed her power. Meanwhile, some guards on patrol find a Magistone just chilling in the open like it's part of the scenery. The curious cat decides to check it out, but just then, monsters lurking in the bushes reveal themselves. The guards flee in panic, but one of them doesn't make it. Back at the hut, the group is astonished by Claire's magical abilities. Claire explains that the demons forced her to use her powers against her will. Lloyd realizes that Ishtar is under threat from the Magocracy. Dagus warns that if the demon seize the city, it will make it much easier for them to invade the continent. The team immediately head back, bringing Claire with them. They make a quick stop to regain their energy before continuing. Lloyd does another search and discovers a horde of monsters heading towards Ishtar, accompanied by a large army. Yui asks Lloyd what their next move should be. Lloyd thinks for a brief moment, then requests to borrow Claire's power. He instructs the rest of the team to go warn the city and prepare for battle. Yui tries to object, but Lloyd insists that one person can't be in 2 places at once, and that's the need for friends. The others are surprised but pleased to see that he now considers them friends. Lloyd casts enhancement spells on everyone, and they split up to carry out their respective missions. Ellen is furious seeing the resumes of the mages who applied to join his party. There isn't even one who's up to Lloyd's level, and he considered Lloyd trash. The rest of the party recognize that Lloyd was exceptional, but Ellen refuses to consider that possibility. They're stuck on what to do, whether or not to go on without a support mage. As they wait for Alan's decision, there's a knock on the door. A knight comes in after being authorized to buy Alan. He reports that a horde of monsters is on their way there, to Ishtar, and is about 10,000. Everyone is stunned by the numbers. The knight says he came to request their help in defeating the monsters, and Alan thinks briefly and switches up to his hero aura. Alan agrees to help, and the knight is delighted. The knight takes his leave, heading to tell everyone that help is coming. A party member, Sheena, questions if Alan is sure about his decision, and he says the request came from the king, so he can't reject the offer. He also wants to use this as a medium to show off his strength to the masses. This doesn't sit well with his party members. Lloyd and Claire come across another horde of monsters in the forest. Lloyd suspects it's an even larger number than the other horde headed for Ishtar. They have to figure out a way to clear out the horde before it joins with the other horde, which would be disastrous. Claire, however, wonders if there's a way to stop the monsters without hurting them, as they're being manipulated. She doesn't want any conflict and feels guilty because the monsters got manipulated by her powers, which were stolen from her. Seeing as Claire cares a lot about the monsters, Lloyd says he'll find a way to free the horde without hurting them. This is music to Claire's ears as she's relieved and already grateful. Lloyd asks if she can send the monsters back home with her magic, but Claire isn't sure, given the large numbers of monsters. But she reconsiders and decides to give it a try when Lloyd offers to refill her mana and boost her spells. Claire steps forward as though she's about to sing "My Heart Will Go On" by Celine Dion and starts her spell. Suddenly, there's a dark spell's presence and Claire stops her spell abruptly. Claire says her spell was blocked and she suspects there's someone else in the forest. Alan is even more disappointed seeing the available adventurers. He considers them dumb and weak and continues to diss and rage bait them until the guild branch director intervenes. The guild branch director reminds them of what they're there for and simply needs them to stand on business and not fight each other. Alan goes on to egotistically lay out his plan, but it's way too demanding and unrealistic to these mages, and their complaints pisses Alan off. His anger is substituted with surprise and confusion as his party's mage, Mia, also mentions that she isn't confident she can pull off what he's requesting as her magical powers have reduced recently. She mentions that she isn't the only one who has been out of sorts. Apparently, everyone else on the team is losing their touch. When Alan asks how it has been since the weirdness, they mention that it has been since Lloyd left. Alan is furious that they've been deceiving him all the while, but Lena corrects that he just chose not to notice. She points out that he stopped training and has been too full of himself, overconfident with his abilities. This information makes the other adventurers uneasy, and it seems like Alan is starting to feel some shame. Lena adds that Alan is unfit to be called a hero, and this stirs Alan up so much that he takes a swing at her, but she catches the punch with ease, like it won't even kill a fly. Lena tells him to shoo, and after noticing he has embarrassed himself before the whole room and that there isn't a single person who sees him the same as before, Alan runs out like a 9-year-old would. After yelling, "I hate you, Mom," he asks that no one blame him for whatever happens. As he leaves, the rest of his crew, apart from Lena, go after him. The adventurers can't believe what their supposed hero is truly like. They've lost hope in stopping the horde, and pulling a temple run is the plan B. But Lena speaks up, mentioning she'll be fighting alongside them as she has left Alan's party. Everyone is delighted as she's very valuable to their fighting chance. She says she has a proposal and asks if anyone knows Lloyd. Lloyd and Claire trace the cause of the magic blockage to a magistone at another spot in the forest. They have to destroy it if they're planning on freeing the horde, and given the size of the horde, there's more than one magistone. Claire can detect it, but only at close range, and that works for Lloyd anyway, as he uses his magic to enhance her senses for the search. After pinpointing where the magistones are, Lloyd casts a concealment spell on them both to make them undetectable by the monsters as they make their way around to the magistones. He warns Claire to tread lightly as the spell would break upon any heavy impact. Claire is beyond stunned, asking who Lloyd is. Bro is casually performing miracles. They immediately begin their stealth mission and successfully nullify the first magistone, freeing the surrounding monsters. There's a defense line before the city, and the soldiers as well as adventurers hold their ground, waiting. Although anxious, everyone has their hopes on Lena's proposal. Lena had revealed to the adventurers that Lloyd had always been the anchor behind their strength and remarkable battle performances. This came as a shock to everyone as he's just a white mage. The guild branch director let Lena know Lloyd is a few days' journey away from Ishtar when she asked, but Lena believed Lloyd would shorten their travel time and return earlier. She asked that they gamble on the chance. They just have to hold the defense line until Lloyd arrives, and they're onto it with several tactical attacks from base. With the way things are going, the guild branch director strongly feels they stand a winning chance as they might actually be able to hold out till Lloyd arrives. Yui and the others catch their breath for a while. Lloyd's support magic has been a huge help to their journey. The thought of all his efforts sort of re-motivates the team to continue the journey quickly. Lloyd and Claire get to the final magistone and nullify it, freeing the monsters. But the species of monsters are hostile to each other, so upon release, they start beefing. No, they didn't wonder how they got there. They just happened to be there and then went, "Oh, these guys. Let's throw down because I hate their guts." As they begin their well-choreographed animal jujutsu, Claire gets hit and her stealth spell wears off. So now, these dudes can see her, and the fact that they stopped their battle royale to face her simply means she's cooked. Just then, Lloyd creates fireworks, drawing the monsters' attention to himself. Back at Ishtar, the defense against the monsters continues. They're still holding, but as expected, they're all exhausted. Eventually, the right flank gets breached by the monsters and more monsters keep approaching. Lena and everyone are out of options when a wild bolt of fire shoots across, incinerating a great number of monsters. It's Yui and the others pulling up almost as cool as Thor did in Infinity War's battle in Wakanda. Meanwhile, Lloyd and the monsters are scruffling, but Lloyd isn't attacking, just dodging. Claire notices this and recalls she had said she didn't want to hurt the monsters. She figures Lloyd isn't attacking because of this. Her idea is to become Moana 2.0. Like some Disney-type scene, using her magic, she sings the conflict into calmness and the monsters quietly leave. It probably wasn't the spell that made them leave, just a cringe, considering how quickly they left. Lloyd is amazed and asks when she did, and Claire explains that she persuaded them as she can convey her thoughts to them via her magic. Lloyd is grateful she saved his life, and Claire feels she should be the one doing the thanking. Lloyd doesn't quite get why, but leaves it aside, setting a new goal to head to Ishtar. The battle at Ishtar continues intensely. Yui and the crew have made a huge difference, but the horde seems endless and the fight is in the monster's advantage. Lena tries to stay positive, still believing they have a fighting chance. She's giving it her all, doing all she can, and even saves a fellow from a monster and gets injured in the process. The monsters finally overpower them, and everyone's fighting spirit is as low as Patrick Starr's IQ. Just when all hope is lost, Claire's voice echoes through the battlefield as she pulls off her magic persuasion thing. With Lloyd's support, the spells on the monsters are broken, and they stop the beatdown and head home, to the surprise of the soldiers. Yui and the others are relieved Lloyd could make it back in time. Any moment longer, and they'd have continued their debut digesting for the rest of the series. Claire is quite worn out as she used too much magic, but she assures Lloyd she's fine. Lloyd compliments her for her ability to communicate with such a large number of monsters, but she replies that Lloyd's powers are quite impressive as well, as it was his magic that made hers reach such lengths. Regardless, Lloyd points out that it is her magic that saved everyone. With everything out of the way, Claire finally corrects the name misconception, stating her name properly to Lloyd. Michel is relaxing in his office, confident in his work, and eagerly awaiting news of Ishtar's fall. However, a demon bursts in and disappoints him by reporting that the monsters have ceased their advance and scattered in multiple directions. Michel is in disbelief. Meanwhile, the golems remain on their evil mission, but unfortunately, it seems Claire's words aren't reaching them. Lloyd suspects that the demons must have done something to enhance the golems. He checks on Ishtar, and then they start heading home. When passing the golems, they get attacked but manage to evade the hit. Lloyd realizes that the golems have indeed been enhanced. As they reach the moat built to protect the city, Lloyd lifts Claire and jumps over it, surprising the soldiers. He reunites with his teammates and they praise him for a job well done, but Lloyd redirects the compliments to Claire. Much to her embarrassment, Yui realizes she misheard Claire's name, but at least now everyone knows the correct name. Lloyd begins to brief them about the golems but suddenly collapses from having used too much magic. Despite his weakness, he refuses to succumb and gets right back on his feet. The guildmaster arrives to meet Lloyd, surprised to see a beast folk. Lloyd asks him to take care of Claire and he agrees. Lloyd thanks her for her help and she thanks him too for saving her before she follows a knight escorting her away. The guildmaster thanks Lloyd for arriving just in time, stating he's their only hope. Lloyd is taken aback to hear this, even more when he sees Lena. She informs him that Alan isn't joining the fight. He picked a fight with the adventurers at the guild and abandoned his post. Lloyd realizes that the safety of the city and its people is at stake. Noticing Lena is wounded, he heals her, but this further weakens him. Lena is annoyed at his selflessness. She admits that the hero's party was at its best when they had him, but Lloyd refuses to believe he is that powerful. Lena continues by saying that she never realized how much he was helping them, and feels bad that she couldn't stop others from kicking him out. She apologizes, but Lloyd doesn't think it's necessary. He still believes he was kicked out because he wasn't strong enough. Just then, the golems arrive at the city. The first few fall into the moat as the knights charge forward to fight the remaining ones. Lloyd tries to warn them, but it is too late for one knight, who suffers a life-changing blow. Others try different attacks, but nothing seems to work. Fear takes hold as the golems move closer. Yui is unsure of what to do. Lloyd decides to cast enhancement magic on everyone. His friends express their concern for him, but Lloyd insists it's his duty. However, he can only cast one enhancement per group. He successfully casts a physical enhancement on the frontliners and a magic power boost on the mage squad, but his strength dwindles further. He warns them that the enhancements won't last long, so they need to hurry. Yui climbs to a high place and announces that Lloyd has cast incredible enhancement magic on all of them, giving them the strength of 100. The knights seem doubtful, but when they see Yui strike a golem down, their morale is restored. Lloyd gives orders to his teammates and then weakly follows a knight away. Soon, everyone is attacking and destroying the golems while Lloyd watches from a tower. Only one golem remains. An adventurer attempts to claim the final victory, but fails miserably. The magic has run out. The golem is determined to complete the mission its comrades could not, but Yui fearlessly gets in its way. The stone dude is pissed and throws a punch, but Yui is pushed aside, and Dagus takes the hit. Using his last strength, Lloyd enhances Yui's sword. She calls on Lena and Dagus to lend her their strengths. Together, they shield against another blow, and Yui climbs up to slash the golem, destroying it. They have won, and Lloyd finally faints from exhaustion. Meanwhile, Will, who was watching the entire thing, is impressed by Lloyd. At the demon mansion, Grist storms into Michelle's office, furious. However, the clever Michelle has already escaped. Grist is livid, trashing the place while reminding himself why he despises those who only care about money. He vows to deal with whoever messed up his plans. Back in Ishtar, Lloyd wakes up at the inn just as Yui enters. She informs him that he collapsed and slept for an entire day. Lloyd apologizes for still lacking in power. Yui is fed up and takes him to the door, opening it to reveal people waiting outside for him, their savior. Lloyd gets an introvert panic and shuts the door. Yui tries to force him back outside, but he makes a run for it. Typical. At Merlin's cottage, someone attempts to open the door, but it explodes immediately. It's Will. Merlin had sensed someone shady. He enters to meet Thor and Lily, old friends. They exchange pleasantries, and Merlin asks how Lloyd is doing. Will briefs her on everything, including Lloyd's blinding low self-esteem. Eventually, Lloyd's friends find him. He asks why all the townsfolk are coming after him, and Cross tells him that it's not to eat him or anything. Silica explains that they just want to express their gratitude. Lloyd feels that all he did was offer a little support to those actually fighting. Dagus suggests that Lloyd's high standards are what's crushing him. When Lloyd tries to argue, Lena encourages him to be more confident in himself, and the group agrees. Will comments that people often dislike those like Lloyd who refuse to acknowledge that they're exceptional. Merlin feels guilty. She just didn't want Lloyd to repeat the same mistake she made. A mistake we're yet to find out anyway, and it better be worth it. Summoning his courage, Lloyd joins his comrades to greet the townspeople. Everyone cheers for him, but even in this moment, he tries to redirect the praise to the other adventurers and knights. Instead, they insist he is the true hero of Ishtar. Finally accepting this, Lloyd smiles as instructed by Dagus. Meanwhile, Alan is fuming on his fake throne while his remaining teammates sulk. Sheena says their hero title will be stripped for not participating in the emergency quest, and Alan snaps at her. He then decides they should pack up and leave for another city. He can't stand the town celebrating Lloyd as a hero. Back at Merlin's cottage, Will continues to discuss Lloyd and his new party. Then the mood turns serious as they reminisce about Sybil, their former teammate. Thor brings up the demons, and Will informs them that the demons are indeed making a move again. He suspects it could be connected to resurrecting the demon lord, but Merlin refuses to believe that is possible. After all, Sybil sacrificed his life to completely destroy the demon lord, so he shouldn't be able to return. Thor asks Merlin to calm down, stating that it is just a possibility. He reminds her that anxiety will do nothing. Instead, they should focus on what they can do to protect the future that Sybil secured. Lloyd and his party arrive at the royal mansion, where the lord has requested to see them. A man comes out to guide them inside, and they are surprised to find Claire there. Yui asks if the lord summoned her as well, but the man replies that he didn't. She's his guest. It turns out he is the lord of the land, Abel Lucas. The adventurers spend some time praising his looks, noting how young he appears for someone who has ruled for decades. Lloyd recalls that Merlin also looks quite young. Yui gazes that there might be some form of beauty magic involved. Abel says he'll share his secret one day and quickly shifts to the business at hand. Celion is feeling anxious, having searched everywhere without any sign of Claire. Suddenly, a warrior runs up to inform him that they have learned of her whereabouts. Back at the royal mansion, everyone is shocked to discover that Claire is the second princess of the Forez Empire. Now they are worried about how they treated her. Abel asks their opinion on Claire's power, and Lloyd admits that it's both incredible and terrifying. Acknowledging this fact, Abel emphasizes that they cannot allow Claire's power to fall into the demon's hands. He mentions that Lloyd's team rescued her and, since they have shown such talent, he has a quest for them. The Empire will be coming to retrieve Claire, and Abel wants Lloyd's team to escort her to the capital, Silphus. The team is surprised. Typically, knights perform such tasks, not adventurers. Abel explains that this is the problem. Knights would definitely attract the attention of the demons. Lloyd sees the validity of this point. As it's time to leave, Claire thanks them for agreeing to help. She requests that they keep calling her Claire like normal. The others try to argue that she's a princess, but Yui has no time for all that and immediately goes for a friendly handshake. They promise to protect Claire, and Lloyd announces their departure to the capital. Lloyd checks their map and suggests they stop at a small town to rest for the day. They've had a long journey since Ishtar, since they took the longer route for safety purposes. Yui keeps Claire engaged, discussing with her. She tells Claire about the next town's reputation for having hot springs, asking if she's interested in trying it out. Cross feels Yui is playing it cool, but Dagus corrects that Yui is just being considerate in her own way. Claire wouldn't feel okay if everyone was on edge, so Yui is trying to ease her. Also, hasn't gone out nearly ever, so Yui wants to take this time to show her around. They finally make it to the hot spring, and Yui hurries in. She and Silica are settled in the tub, but Claire doesn't join them. She's shy, but they convince her, pointing out that there's really nothing to feel shy about. She finally joins them and finds the spring relaxing. On the other hand, Dagus, Cross, and Lloyd are having their own time, scrubbing each other's backs like they're trying to clean makeup off, until Lloyd starts overthinking, and then Cross's back suffers for it. Lloyd deduces that the enemy will come for Claire with a small number of elite mercenaries. He needs to sharpen his search magic, or even better, get everyone prepared now that the chances of being attacked are low. Lloyd pitches the idea to stay in the town for a couple of days to get a thing or two to properly prepare in case of the attackers. After getting the opinions of everyone, as they all have a thing or two to do in town, Yui makes the decision. Dagus searches around the city for a place to get a new shield, but no place seems to have what he wants. He comes across Yui and Claire, who are sightseeing, and explains his situation when they ask. Claire mentions that she saw a shop down an alley, so Dagus decides to check it out. The shop is dry and deserted, but the weapons are really sound and impressive. As Dagus admires the weapons, an old man, who seems to be the owner of the shop, comes out asking who Dagus is. He wonders if Dagus is one of the thugs, an indication that he often gets troubled by thugs. Dagus explains that he's only there to see the weapons, and the man seems less riled up and leaves Dagus to it. Dagus inspects the weapons for a while, wondering why a shop with such impressive quality weapons isn't booming. Just then, a bunch of men barged into the shop, noisy and all. They start mocking Dagus when they figure out he's there to buy a weapon, saying he doesn't have a good eye for weapons if he intends to buy from there. The old man comes out and stands up to them. They have been troubling the man, harassing the shop such that there are no customers left. At first, Dagus wonders if they're loan sharks, but they boastfully correct, stating that their leader is an A-rank adventurer. They even assume Dagus is a nobody, and he doesn't attempt to correct that. He wonders why an A-rank adventurer is wasting time on something this petty, and a gang leader says it's because the old man is too stubborn. The old man has been pestered to sell a weapon he has in his collection to the A-rank adventurer, but the old man doesn't find him worthy or even able to wield the weapon. They're about to jump the old man when Dagus calls them out on their their behavior, which is disappointing given they are supposed to be adventurers. They feel insulted, since a bottom-rank adventurer like Dagus, as they assume, is speaking in such a manner to them. One of them is stupid enough to take a swing at Dagus but gets humbled real quick. They aren't done with getting shot when Dagus summons his shield, leaving them wondering where he got it from before hitting them out of the shop with it. The so-called mighty A-rank adventurer wonders how Dagus can do all that, and that's when Dagus reveals he's an S-rank adventurer, although he'd rather not brag about it. They feel embarrassed and all run away, promising to get back at him. After finding out Dagus's name, the old man says he has a request to ask of Dagus. Lloyd sits focused on improving his support magic when Yui and Claire join him. He explains what he's on about when Yui asks, and adds that he'll also love to learn some spells. Yui suggests he learns some offensive spells, and Lloyd has thought of that, fireballs to be precise, but he feels his magic will be way less impressive compared to the likes of Silica's, as she's really impressive. Yui agrees to this and goes ahead to share a few facts about Silica. She mentions that Silica has always been impressive from childhood, but that isn't everything. Silica is relentless. She never gives up and just keeps on trying till she's successful. She works harder than everyone, and that's what has made her such an amazing mage. Silica's training is going intensively, and she finally gets the result she wants, but loses balance and falls mid-rejoicing. She loses control of her spell, and it causes an explosion. Good thing this is in the woods. Silica is beating herself up for being clumsy when she hears movements in the bushes. She's on alert. This could be Bigfoot or the infamous Goatman, but it turns out to be Dagus. They're surprised to see each other, and Dagus explains the events that led to this. The old man showed Dagus the weapon the adventurers have been obsessed with getting, a really top-notch shield, legendary even. The weight is extremely heavy too, so it's like Thor's hammer to most adventurers. The man says he wouldn't mind letting Dagus have the shield, but he has a request. Although Dagus wouldn't want to take such an important thing from the man, he can't refuse. There have been reports and complaints about explosions in the woods, and the people of the town suspect it's monsters. He requests that Dagus check it out and resolve it for the shield as a reward. Silica is surprised people mistook her for a monster, but Dagus points out it's not so much of a shock considering how intense she went with her spell training. The river there even dried up, and she didn't even notice. Silica panics and feels bad when she notices the river though. The old man has a good laugh when told about this, and Silica keeps apologizing, adding that she used her magic to revive the river. The man doesn't have any problems with that, and still offers Dagus the shield. Although there was no true monster, the fact that Dagus was truthful and is strong already qualifies him for it. They discuss their progress at the end of the day as a team. Everyone is excited for both Dagus and Silica, but Lloyd and Cross feel like they've not been putting in so much effort. Yui eases the pressure, pointing out that rushing things wouldn't do them good. They should take baby steps and they'll still achieve their goals. Cross is brainstorming, looking for a way to upgrade. Just as Dagus and Silica, he has tried everything he can think of and feels left behind. Just as he is taking a walk to ponder, a kid runs into him. The boy apologizes, and Cross isn't offended, as they were both absent-minded. The boy appears to be an adventurer, and Cross confirms this. When the boy realizes that Cross is also an adventurer, he hesitates momentarily before asking Cross to team up with him. They head to the town's adventurer guild. It seems Cross couldn't resist the poor kid's request. The kid's name is Lin, and he is an archer like Cross. Cross wonders why Lin isn't in a regular party, as his rank is pretty low to be a solo adventurer. Since Lin is an E-rank hunter, there isn't any hunter who would want to partner up with him. The other adventurers even wonder how he was able to get another adventurer, Cross, to join him. Lin is sorry and even refers to himself as a failure, but Cross gives him some consolation, claiming that he's a low-ranked hunter as well. Lin feels less condemned now, just like a short dude who sees a fellow short dude. They're now a team, temporarily though, and decide to go on an adventure. Yui moves through town exploring meal spots. She's looking for a proper desert place when she notices she's starting to get out of shape, which leads her to go into panic. Just then she notices a gathering of people. There seems to be something going on. A little boy is about to get punished for splashing mud on a rude-looking lady's dress. The boy is way too intimidated to even put into words how sorry he is, and the lady orders her men. Nobody does anything as the lady is a noble from a well-known house, but Yui steps up just in time to stop them. The lady is pissed off, wondering who Yui is to defy her. Yui gets on her nerves more, calling her a hag who is disgracing herself by crashing out on a little kid. This does it for the lady as she orders her men to attack Yui. Yui makes the boy leave before summoning her weapon to block the men's attacks. They all wonder where the sword came from, and the lady claims Yui is pulling tricks. Yui just maintains her cool with a smirk on her face. Cross and Lin find their quest target. Their objective is to defeat the creatures, and Cross wastes no time in getting right to it. He summons his weapon, leaving Lin surprised and curious about where the bow and arrows came from. Cross quickly covers up by saying it's the only spell he's good at. Lin says it's the first time he has ever seen such. They get back to business, and Cross begins the attack, shooting down a couple of the creatures. He asks Lin to give it a try as well, and Lin does, but he's terrible at it. Cross can sense they've got a long way to go. Yui is clearly out of the men's league, overpowering all their attempts but still giving them the opportunity to stand down. The lady is really frustrated and at this point has to cheat, ordering her subordinate from the crowd to cast a spell on Yui unaware. The spell holds Yui down, draining her strength. With so much satisfaction in the petty move she has pulled, the lady orders her men to finish Yui off. They're in the attacking process when a mysterious person interferes. The mystery person calls them out for acting cowardly, ganging up against Yui, but the lady feels it's justified as Yui defied her. The mysterious person, in half a second, attacks the men and even frees Yui. She's so fast that everything reacts moments after she's done with the attack. Yui is surprised and really impressed, wondering who the person is. As the final act, the mystery person feigns an attack, and it scares the hell out of the lady. Yui thanks the mystery person for saving her and wants to know what she can do to be that strong. The mystery person doesn't see the need for Yui to pressure herself, as she's already really strong at a young age. Yui says there's a white mage in her team, Lloyd, who is really incredible. Seeing as she relies on him quite a lot, she wants to get stronger. The name Lloyd rings a bell to the mystery person, who turns out to be Lily. Yeah, I know you saw it coming, whatever. Lily figures the situation out and is inclined to help because Lloyd is involved. Meanwhile, Lloyd is getting worked up, overthinking spells. He feels he isn't making any meaningful progress, and Daggis and the others are concerned about him. They suggest he take a chill pill, cool his head or something, and Claire volunteers to show him around town. To everyone's surprise, Lily and Yui are in the woods, which they have chosen as their training ground. Lily points out that Yui was quick to make an offer to a stranger. She even followed her into the woods alone. Lily emphasizes that Yui doesn't even know her name, but Yui insists that she is a good judge of character. When Yui asks, Lily provides a fake name. Although Yui can tell it's not the truth, she still chooses to trust Lily. They get down to business, and Lily summons her weapon, which comes as a surprise to Yuri, who didn't know such magic was something people used often. She had only learned about it when she met Lloyd. Yui's objective is to learn the secrets of Lily's strength, and she's determined. Lloyd and Claire sit out, having a snack. Lloyd appreciates that Claire brought him there and apologizes for the trouble, but Claire is happy to help. She brings up his spell issue, and Lloyd says he just needs to have a breakthrough. Claire wishes there were a way she could help. There actually is a way, as Lloyd is interested in ancient magic, which she does. A typical example being the song she sings to communicate with animals and monsters. On the other hand, Cross and Lynn are still on their quest. Cross tries to tutor Lynn on how to shoot his arrows properly, and surprisingly, Lynn is a fast learner, or is it lazy writing? They begin clearing out the wave of creatures. Lily wants Yui to cut down a tree, but from a distance, without direct contact or making a move. Yui is a bit confused, so Lily illustrates, swinging her sword. The sword slash hits the tree, cutting it off clean. Lily explains that she clad her sword with magic mana and made it fly. Yui is excited to try it out herself. Given that the ancient magic is really exceptional, Lloyd is interested in learning it. The ancient magic only appears once every few centuries when a worthy person is born. The magic is strictly by inheritance, hence there's a divine punishment for any other person who tries to practice it. Claire advises against it, mentioning that it's a taboo, and Lloyd understands and says he won't delve any deeper. Cross and Lynn have successfully defeated the creatures. Cross makes a remark stating that they'd have finished a lot quicker if he had made use of rapid fire. Lynn seems to be intrigued, but Cross plays it off, saying that it's impossible to pull off such a move with a bow and arrows. Just then, a high-ranking monster arrives and is in the midst of their wins. If they leave, they won't have any proof that they actually completed the quest. Cross attempts to fight the monster, but his arrow fails to penetrate its body. Cross figures that it'll take powerful hits or successive attacks to affect the monster. Just then, an idea comes to Lynn's mind and he suggests rapid fire. Cross reminds him that it is impossible, but Lynn has an idea. After pitching it to Cross, it sounds quite doable, and Cross takes the chance. Cross takes 2 quick and consecutive shots at the monster on the same spot and is able to penetrate and take down the monster. This is an addition to their quest, and they present it at the guild, to the bewilderment of the other adventurers. Cross mentions that everyone would see Lynn in a different light now. He had given all the credit to Lynn. Lynn wonders if that is really an okay thing, and Cross is absolutely fine with the decision, as Lynn has helped him figure out a way he can get stronger. Lynn apologizes for being a burden during their quest, and Cross points out that Lynn apologizes excessively, advising him to ease up on that. The moment of truth is here, as Lynn has his suspicions that Cross is low-key, a powerful adventurer. This is when Cross reveals himself to be an S-rank adventurer and apologizes for lying. Lynn is stunned and apologizes excessively, like he's the cause of world hunger for disturbing Cross, an S-rank adventurer. Yui isn't really successful in her training, and the move turns out to be really difficult. It's like watching a dance which seems pretty easy until you try it out. Lily is so strong that this seems really easy, and she's confused as to why it's giving Yui issues. Yui doesn't give up, and Lily wonders why she's really hell-bent on becoming stronger. Yui explains that she had been overconfident until she met Lloyd. She has learned there's always someone stronger, and that being said, she wants to improve so she can stand by Lloyd with her head held high. Just then, a monster attacks Lily from above and Yui tries to alert her. Lily does react to this and basically plays dumb, prompting Yui to intervene. In this moment of desperation, Yui pulls the move off, slashing the monster from where she stands. Yui is pretty excited she could finally get it. She says she felt Lily was in danger and acted instinctively, although she knows there's no way Lily was endangered given her strength. Lily discards the fact and thanks Yui for saving her life. Yui's moment of victory ends quickly as she's out of strength and falls asleep on the spot. Back at their crib, everyone is worried about Yui as it's all late and she isn't back yet. Just then, there's a sound at the door and they hurry to check it out. They find Yui lying there deep in sleep. Lily had dropped her off, stealthy, and none of them knows. They're up and ready to leave town the next morning, but Lloyd is gloomy as he feels he's the only one who hasn't achieved anything. This is hardly true, as he has made impressive progress and the others can tell. Lily rants about the whole experience to Merlin, who is barely paying attention. Merlin is envious that Lily got to see Lloyd and the others alone. She crashes out, saying she'll go visit Lloyd as she can't stand not doing so any longer. Merlin arrives at the royal capital and is impressed by how gorgeous it has become. Meanwhile, at the demon mansion, Grist reports to a mysterious talking flame, the Demon Lord, about their failed mission. He is ashamed. They even lost the Beastfolk girl. The Demon Lord, disappointed, reminds Grist that he is one of his 4 great generals, but wonders if he had expected too much. Grist had promised to create an incredible army of monsters that would obey them, claiming it would be their trump card for invading the continent. The Demon Lord demands results and warns that if Grist fails him again, it could cost him his position. Grist accepts this and leaves. However, the moment he steps outside, he throws a tantrum like the one you do after your parents scold you. He's frustrated, unsure how to find the girl without clues. Suddenly, Michelle appears like a savior. Grist is surprised by Michelle's audacity to show up after the previous incident. Michelle informs him that Claire is heading to the capital, protected by S-rank adventurers instead of knights. When Grist asks how he knows, Michelle claims he's trying to restore his reputation and offers to help Grist retrieve Claire. He accepts. What happened to all those threats he made about destroying Michelle once he saw him? Meanwhile, Lloyd and his friends are making jokes as they travel. Lloyd seems to be getting a hang of it. Suddenly, they hear rustling in the bushes and instinctively take a protective stance in front of Claire. However, it turns out to be just a rabbit. Lloyd scans the area and confirms that there are no demons nearby. The group decides to take a break to replenish their energy. Lloyd looks at his friends with pride. Yui notices and asks what he is thinking. He tells her he was thinking about how everyone seems to have grasped something new. When they all jumped into action earlier, they were brimming with confidence. Yui asks about him, and he replies that he has done everything he can so far, but he's still worried about dragging them down. That must have been some super strong spell Merlin used, because how can this dude still not realize his strength? Yui can't believe this is happening again. She asks if he doesn't think he should have more self-confidence. Lloyd remembers being told this before, but still feels he can improve. Silica tells him that the power he possesses is more incredible than anyone else's. Lloyd tries to compare himself to his master, but Silica interrupts, confessing that she is training hard to catch up to him. Cross agrees, saying that meeting Lloyd has shown him there is still room to grow. Degas confirms that it's been that way ever since Lloyd joined them. They work hard so they won't become reliant on him. Yui explains to Lloyd that being self-confident means appreciating his true strength. If he undervalues himself, he will never draw out his full potential, and if he doesn't accept his true strength, he won't get any better. Lloyd resolves to work on becoming more self-confident, and Yui is pleased by this. Merlin heads for the castle. The guards attempt to stop her, but she quickly casts spells on them, and they let her pass freely. She goes to the library, straight to a hidden door. She considers knocking to show some manners, but the door swings open, revealing Lowen. Lowen used to be friends with Merlin and the others back when they fought the Demon Lord. She doesn't appear surprised to see Merlin and pulls her inside. Curious, Merlin asks how Lowen knew it was her. Lowen explains that she can sense Merlin's mana. After the courtesy tea, Merlin comments that the Emperor must trust Lowen a lot to allow her to hide her research lab in the castle. Lowen says it's just how things turned out when she tried studying and mimicking Merlin's magic. Wait, does that mean she put a spell on the Emperor, or was he just impressed? Merlin says she has no magic worth studying, but Lowen counters that Merlin can cast spells without incantations and has developed a technique for using storage magic without a staff, all by analyzing how ancient magic works. Merlin suddenly feels like a philosopher and says that necessity is the mother of invention. She then pulls out the magic book from much earlier, asking Lowen to examine it and determine if this half of the book still possesses the power to seal the Demon Lord. Lowen is alarmed at the thought of the Demon Lord's return, but Merlin reassures her that she is merely considering possibilities and that they need to be prepared just in case. Meanwhile, in Lloyd's team, they consult a map indicating that they need to go through this forest before reaching the town of Schwartz. From there, it will take a little over a day to reach the capital, where they have to drop off Claire. They should already be on their way, but with the sun setting soon, they might encounter monsters if they're in the forest at night. Cross says that if they encounter monsters, Claire can control them, but Claire responds that she may not have enough time to cast her spell if they are caught by surprise. Lloyd tries to expand his search magic, but something is interfering. Suddenly, a thick mist begins to envelop them that they can barely see. Silica wants to use her wind magic to clear it away, but she can't retrieve her staff. Lloyd explains that the mist is disrupting their mana. Yui wonders if a monster is responsible, but Claire has never heard of a monster capable of such. Lloyd agrees, concluding that it is likely the work of demons. They start to run through the mist, desperately trying to escape the forest in time. Back in the castle, Lowen finishes her analysis and confirms that there is still mana in the book, though it is merely the remnants of Sybil's power. Merlin feels relieved. She believes this may be Sybil's last will. Lowen is a bit confused, so Merlin elaborates. She explains that Lloyd had touched the grimoire one day and he was compatible with it as well. Merlin believes he has the potential to become the chosen one, just like her and Sybil. However, Lowen is concerned as reaching such heights is no easy task, but Merlin was already preparing him for this by giving him tasks way beyond his ability because she wanted him to grow more powerful than even Sybil was. Feeling sentimental, Merlin says that raising a child is nothing like handling magic. She was never able to understand how Lloyd felt. Lowen asks if she came to see him, and Merlin admits that they have never been apart for this long before. She wants to hear his voice again. Lloyd and his friends friends make it out of the forest and into the town of Schwarz, but the place is deserted. Lloyd enhances Silica's mana and she clears the mist. They spot Grist, who has a smug look on his face, accompanied by demon minions. It turns out he planned everything, and Lloyd's team inadvertently fell right into his trap. Claire recognizes Grist and informs the others that he is the man who kidnapped her. Grist declares that they need Claire back and signals his demons to prepare for an attack. Lloyd enhances his team's powers and orders Dagus to guard Claire while Cross takes position on the tower. Yui launches the first attack, taking out a few demons. Silica follows, eliminating more demons. Cross shoots at one of the demons, but the dude activates a magic shield. Cross quickly switches to rapid fire, taking down both demons. He then aims at Grist, but bro is Man of Steel. Nothing is penetrating. Yui's attack does not work either. While Grist attacks Dagus, Yui attempts a sneak attack, but her sword cannot reach him. Grist effortlessly hits Yui away, taunting her that she cannot cut him. Lloyd finally realizes Grist's mana armor is protecting him. Grist, impressed, guesses that Lloyd is the savior of Ishtar. Before Grist can attack, Silica uses her burst magic, but he remains unscathed. The other demons are back on their feet, causing Yui to panic. Lloyd doesn't know what to do when, suddenly, ice encases the demons. It's Celian's magic. He cannot allow Claire to be taken again. With a snap, he shatters the ice, defeating the minions. Meanwhile, Michelle, who is observing from a distance, notices that things are going south and considers increasing the mist. He is interrupted by Will, who seems to appear out of nowhere. Michelle guesses that he is with the adventurers. Will says he came to cut off the source of the mist. Michelle is overconfident and believes Will is incapable, but Will can see right through his trick like a piece of cake. Michelle is ready to end Will. Celian says that he never counted on the party to begin with, criticizing most adventurers as nobodies. However, he decides to spare them since Claire is safe. Claire introduces her childhood friend Celian to her new friends, revealing that he is the Ice Crystal Hero. Lloyd questions whether Celian was sent by the Empire to retrieve Claire, but it turns out he sent himself on the mission because he didn't trust the adventurers. Claire scolds him for his harsh words, and Yui recalls rumors about the Ice Crystal Hero being ill-mannered. Celian is annoyed but states that the Sacred Nation does not recognize him as a hero. Then he adds that he doesn't actually care about the title. Cap! I mean, it's obvious he does. Bro is out here claiming titles and sending himself on missions, but okay. Grist finally breaks free from his crystal prison. Celian confidently moves forward to attack, but Grist dodges and counterattacks. Grist realizes Celian is no ordinary beast folk. Not only is he using magic without a chant, but he is also using his own body in place of a staff and is not freezing. Celian says he's been physically resistant to ice magic since birth, and now he is ready to finish off Grist. He attacks, but Grist still manages to avoid each one. Yui and Silica want to help, but Bro is too confident in his abilities, so they let him be. Meanwhile, Michelle no longer sees Will and assumes he has fled, but Will suddenly appears behind him. Michelle is startled. He does not understand how Will escaped his attack. Will reminds him that he had said earlier that he can easily see through Michelle's tricks. Realizing Will used a portion to evade his attack, Michelle understands that Will is an alchemist but refuses to accept that he might be the legendary alchemist. Back to the fight. Celian attacks frantically while Grist dodges his blows with ease. The lion refuses to give up, visibly angry, which causes concern for Claire. The adventurers begin to understand why Celian is not recognized as a hero. Meanwhile, Lloyd wonders why Grist isn't fighting back. Grist starts to charge up his attack. Sensing something ominous, Lloyd shouts for Celian to be careful, but Celian's inflated ego leads him to interpret Lloyd's warning as an order. As Grist goes up to attack, Lloyd notices that he compressed his mana. He warns his friends to take cover. Celian, however, does not seem concerned about the mana at all. He charges in with his own punch as well, causing a massive explosion. Will didn't know Grist had that much power. He thinks he might have slightly underestimated the 4 great generals. Meanwhile, Michelle has already fled the scene. Again, once the smoke clears, Lloyd checks to confirm that everyone is safe, but he cannot locate Celian and Claire. Then they see that Grist has taken Claire. An aircraft flies in to pick him up. Poor Claire is kidnapped for the second time. Lloyd watches the craft float away. However, Celian is quick to act, immediately going after the craft as soon as he emerges from the rubble. He pulls an earthbender-type move and lunges himself into the skies on ice, but the structure doesn't hold, collapsing just before Celian gets a hold of Grist. The others watch from below as Celian falls and is about to be catch-up as soon as he hits the ground, but Lloyd quickly signals Silica to use her magic to slow down his landing. Celian is safe on the ground, but Grist has just gotten away with Claire. Celian, with 0 chills, wants to get back on his pursuit, but Lloyd stops him, pointing out the fact that his enemy is airborne. Celian lashes out at Lloyd, asking him to stay out of his way, just before realizing Lloyd did something to him. Lloyd explains that he did a simple healing spell when Celian asked. The others gather around as they need to strategize their next move, and Lloyd mentions that he has a plan. Celian isn't exactly being cooperative, but quickly gets his ego humbled. Dagus mentions that Lloyd is behind Celian's rescue from the fall earlier, and suggests that Celian trusts Lloyd. To Celian's surprise, Lloyd says they need his power. Almost as if he had considered it for a while, he agrees, on the condition that Lloyd doesn't disrupt his flow, and Lloyd promises not to. Grist is fascinated by the aircraft and wishes they had used it back then, when they attacked Ishtar. Michelle, however, breaks the worst possible news Grist could hear at that moment, being on an aircraft, that the craft is still just a prototype prototype and has only recently become airborne. As anyone would, Grist worries if they'll crash, but Michelle reveals that he has acquired a powerful power source, a fragment of the Demon Lord. He mentions that the former Demon Lord went all Oppenheimer in the last battle, blown to bits. He was able to get his hands on a piece which still contains some of his mana. Michelle reveals that he analyzed its wellspring of vitality and was able to make a system that creates power from its infinite mana. Grist is clearly against the idea, but Michelle is chill and unbothered. He reveals his plan to experiment on some monsters he has locked up. Just then, the craft's alarm goes off. It is Lloyd and the others coming after the craft. Lloyd had devised a cool plan, and with the aid of Celian's powers, they leapt through the air. Will watches from below before taking his leave. Michelle's maniacal laugh comes to an abrupt end when Lloyd and the others make it aboard the craft. Grist immediately heads out for round 2 with them, leaving Michelle and Claire in. In all these, Claire is just stunned, focused on the fact that Celian is working with other people. Grist meets up with Lloyd and the others, and round 2 of their face-off begins. Despite all the attacks coming from Lloyd and the others, Grist seems to be unscathed. His armor deflects basically everything thrown at him, but it seems Lloyd and the others are onto something Grist will be finding out painfully soon. Grist's confidence is humiliated when his hand suddenly freezes and breaks off, Mortal Kombat Jack style. He's stunned and curious, and Lloyd explains to him how they went about it. From Lloyd's observation, Grist's magical armor isn't automatic. He has to see an attack coming before activating it, so Lloyd casts a spell on him to make him not feel any pain. After that, Celian used an invisible cooling attack which blah blah blah. I'm pretty sure he's so hurt he can't grasp the rest of the explanation. All this while they were all working up to that, attacking to create diversions and distract Grist from the main thing, and Cross and Yui are pretty proud of their teamwork. With his arm gone and the pain setting in, Grist flees back into the craft. He pulls a really desperate card, asking Michelle to free the monsters to fight the kids. What a big man move. Michelle, however, warns against it, as his research on them is still underdeveloped. Therion, Lloyd, and the others make it into the craft and have Michelle and Grist cornered. Therion requests violently for the release of Claire, but Grist and Michelle don't comply. Grist starts kicking open the locks on the monster cages and freeing them, but Michelle crashes out. Like, just leave the dude's precious specimens alone. There's even a chicken-looking monster in there, which seems like it was there for any time, bro. Felt like having a quick aircraft snack. Grist laughs with accomplishment as the monsters move out of their cages like paid thugs, but he gets caught up by one of the monsters and begs for Michelle's intervention. But Michelle doesn't care about that. He has his mind on something else. He figures he could carry out his experiments right then and goes ahead to pull some stunts to measure the monster's reaction. Celian takes that avenue to hurriedly rescue Claire, but whatever Michelle is doing takes effect, and the monsters grow feral. Under Michelle's control, they're about to get into a brawl with Lloyd and the others, but just then, Claire comes in between them, telling Lloyd and the others to stand down. She uses her ancient magic, singing to try and wear off the spell on the monsters, and they just watch her sing, like villains watching the hero's dramatic transformation. Just then, the craft gets unstable, shaking like it's flying through a storm. Michelle is in panic mode, trying to figure out what the issue is. He deduces that Claire's magic is causing the Demon Lord's wellspring of vitality to melt down. Whatever that means, he says it'll explode at this rate. Lloyd uses a gravity spell to cancel out the turbulence effect on the interior of the craft, allowing them to have normal balance and not feel the shakiness. Just then, they notice something off about Grist. He seems mindless and his eyes are all white. He requests the wellspring of vitality from Michelle. Michelle figures the Demon Lord is speaking through a vessel, Grist, and throws the Demon Lord's body piece at Grist. This begins a magical reaction, drawing in the monsters as well as Grist. Michelle is fascinated by this, but Claire breaks down as she can hear the monsters scream in terror, and she feels for them. They begin to mix up in this witchcraft-looking bubble. No one is as stoked as Michelle is. When everything settles, the reaction stops, and what has been cooking up is revealed. Never let it cook again, for real. The monsters are conjoined with each other, and Grist as well, looking like an organic Power Rangers Megazord, or one of their weird-looking villains. Lloyd explains it's a chimera, but not gonna lie, it looks Power Rangers related. Michelle is marveled by this, but just then he gets slashed in half by the chimera. However, this dude is still really intrigued by the beauty of this cursed thing. What beauty! And he takes his final breath, smiling. Everyone is on alert, with a serious threat in front of them. Merlin and Ryuan walk together. Merlin seems to be leaving while Ryuan tries to convince her not to, but without liquor, that's impossible. Just then, they encounter Will. Ryuan wonders how he got in, as he can't use magic, but the dude has his ways. Merlin deduces that Will has something important to discuss, seeing as he came, and Will affirms. Merlin, because of this, takes Ryuan's offer and decides to stay. She won't be needing the liquor anymore, as she says there isn't time for that. With Lloyd's support, Dagus tries to shield against the chimera's attack, but the strength difference is humbling. Just then, they notice the ship is crashing, but unlike the others, Lloyd is chill and probably trying to think. They're cooked basically. Claire, being compassionate as usual, feels for the monsters who got compiled and turned into the chimera, but Celian mentions that there is nothing they can do about that and asks her to let it go. The chimera blocks the entrance. It means business, but Claire still wouldn't let Celian attack, holding him back. Like, bruh, they're in a difficult situation and don't have the slightest clue how to get out of it. Merlin and Will teleport to the location where Lloyd and his team are. Using her search magic, Merlin locates them and holds hands with Will so he can see them too. They teleport once more. Isilica attempts to use her wind magic, but it's useless. Lloyd glances around and comes up with a plan. He instructs everyone to stand against against the wall and store their equipment. Then, he releases his gravity magic, causing the aircraft to tilt and making the Chimera fall. With the exit now clear, Lloyd commands everyone to run. The monster, unwilling to let them escape, breathes fire and ice at them, but Lloyd successfully blocks the attack. Jack S. Celian creates an ice crystal for them to climb onto and try to escape. However, the monster breathes fire on the crystal, melting it. Lloyd grabs Yui and Silica and begins running. He orders Dagus and Cross to jump. They know this is a reckless move, but they have no choice and all jump off. Lloyd asks Celian to make ice, and he arrogantly replies that he knows. Then he creates an ice formation for them to land on. It's now Silica's turn. She readies her staff to use her wind magic for a safe landing and asks Lloyd to enhance her magic. He complies and tells her to wait for the perfect timing. They continue to free fall until Lloyd finally says, "It's time." Silica uses her magic to slow their fall, and they all jump off just before the ice crystal crashes into the ground. The team praises Silica for her efforts. When Lloyd congratulates her on a job well done, she humbly attributes her success to his enhancement. Lloyd replies that all he did was cast enhancement magic. His friends, used to this, view it as his signature punchline. Pi Solian, however, doesn't understand them. He says he has always fought alone, as it's easier, and teaming up is a sign of weakness, so he struggles to understand how Lloyd makes working together feel so effortless. Claire remarks that Lloyd is quite mysterious. The aircraft finally crashes to the ground and explodes. Claire is concerned about the monsters that are still inside. Celian comforts her, but wait, the Chimera is still alive. It evolves and grows even larger. Like, bruh, was that even necessary? Lloyd orders everyone to run into the forest. Meanwhile, Merlin and Will arrive to find the aircraft in flames. Merlin panics and runs a search of the environment. She successfully locates them. Lloyd and his friends are quietly discussing the monster. Lloyd recalls what happened on the aircraft and realizes that Claire's ancient magic actually called out to the Demon Lord's wellspring of vitality. When it awakened, it needed a body for the Demon Lord's revival, absorbing the nearby monsters in the process. Dagus asks why it is coming after them, and Yui suggests that it may be targeting Claire. She reasons that even though it has transformed, it is still Grist, and Grist wants Claire. This makes sense to Lloyd. Meanwhile, Merlin and Will move closer to them. Dagus asks if they can use concealment magic to hide Claire, but Lloyd thinks it will only be a temporary solution. Celian insists that they must eliminate the monster, but Claire is uncomfortable with that idea. Silica notices and asks if there is a way to save the monsters. A thoughtful silence falls over the group before Lloyd has an idea. He suggests that Claire sing again to convey her wish to the wellspring of vitality, hoping it will restore the monsters to normal. The others aren't so sure about this plan, but Lloyd insists that he will enhance her power, which should make it work. Celian opposes the idea. The group trusts Lloyd since they have no other options, and Claire agrees to try it. Just as they are about to leave, Merlin comes out from hiding and warns Lloyd not to proceed with the plan. He is surprised to see her, but there is no time to catch up. Merlin reminds him that using ancient magic is forbidden. Lloyd acknowledges this, but argues that they can effectively harness Claire's ancient magic. Merlin is taken aback by Lloyd's confidence. Lloyd explains that after leaving her and meeting his new friends, he has come to realize his own power. Merlin cautions him against becoming overconfident, but Lloyd clarifies that he is simply aware of his abilities. He adds that he understands how difficult it will be to surpass her as his master. Meanwhile, the Chimera continues its furious search, prompting Lloyd to tell everyone to move ahead. They all sprint towards the monster, leaving Merlin behind. She tries to reassure herself that Lloyd is just offering support magic, and that her team's tragedy won't repeat itself. I mean, you know what they say, Delulu is the Solulu. Upon reaching the site, the team quickly springs into action, with Celian raining ice crystals down on the Chimera. This distracts the monster, giving Lloyd the opportunity to climb onto it. He stabs it with his staff and asks Claire to start singing. Claire begins to sing while Lloyd does his best to enhance the effect. Suddenly, a black hole opens above them. The Chimera disintegrates, freeing the smaller monsters. Once it's over, Claire is grateful and wants to thank Lloyd, but the black hole is sucking him in along with Grist. Merlin quickly recognizes that this is a backlash from using ancient magic. Concerned for Lloyd, everyone fears that he might be trapped there forever. Inside the black hole, Lloyd finds himself in a strange space. Although Grist is disappearing, he remains intact, but is surprised to see his body floating. A voice explains that his mind and body are being forced apart. Lloyd wonders if it's the effect of ancient magic, and the voice elaborates that ancient magic was left behind by powerful beings who could reshape the world at will. They meddled with the world's established boundaries, even creating magic that defied the laws of reality. Meanwhile, those on the ground can hear the voice as well, and they wonder where it is coming from. Merlin recognizes it as Sybil's voice, her old teammate. Sybil continues his explanation that the power caused chaos and disorder in the world. Afraid of the consequences, the Ancient Ones banned its use, deeming it too dangerous for anyone to wield. However, they also anticipated a time when this power would be needed, so they established inheritors of ancient magic, those like Claire. At the same time, they placed a spell on the world designed to destroy anyone who would dare to use ancient magic, except for the chosen inheritors. This spell activates whenever ancient magic is cast, causing the caster's mana to spiral out of control, leading to their demise. Master of Brady of Hellfirst Sevenation, Dubal, not your obriculators, and managed to use ancient magic despite the ban. Sybil reveals that it was him. During the battle against the Demon Lord, when their victory seemed certain, the dude used his last resort self-destruction. This act destroyed the city and killed Sybil's comrades, but he used ancient magic at the cost of his own life to bend the boundary between life and death, bringing back his friends and the people of the city. Suddenly, the world's boundaries begin closing beneath Lloyd. Merlin is afraid that Lloyd will be taken from her this time. Sybil urges Lloyd to escape, and when Lloyd asks how, Sybil points at his chest. When Lloyd touches his chest, he remembers his new teammates and friends. Meanwhile, Yui says that Lloyd has always been there to help them, so now it's their turn to help him. Cross calls out to Lloyd, and Merlin does too. Lloyd hears their voices and follows in their direction. Sybil disappears. As the boundaries continue to close, Lloyd floats in the void, trying to find his way back to his friends. Suddenly, a blinding light appears, and his friends rush towards it, except for Yui, who looks back and sees Lloyd. Everyone hugs him at once, relieved that he's back. Merlin is also relieved and thanks Sybil. At the palace, Lloyd and his friends are waiting to see the king. Yui questions Lloyd for not telling them that his master was the great sage Merlin. Lloyd doesn't see her that way, and Silica absolutely can't believe him. Yui now understands why he's been acting this way. He has been comparing himself to someone in another league. Claire comes out to meet them and thanks them once again. Celian approaches Claire and sadly informs her that he lost the bag she made for him. He apologizes, but Claire reassures him that it's okay, she can simply make another one. The king is finally ready to see them, and they are invited in. Soon after, the meeting concludes. He had praised them and even rewarded them with a bonus, a mansion in the capital. Eknawan interrupts their conversation, sniffing around Lloyd. They mistake her for a child, but she corrects them, then says that Lloyd smells like Merlin. They stare at her in confusion. She tries to defend herself, insisting that she's not a perv, but Merlin steps in to introduce her and explains that Lowen can differentiate mana by scent. Meanwhile, Yui and the others are nervous in Merlin's presence. When Lloyd asks why they are acting this way, they rant about how powerful Merlin is. Merlin approaches Lloyd and asks if he will come back home. Everyone looks at him waiting for his reply. Lloyd glances around at his friends and responds that he wants to keep adventuring. His friends are happy to hear this. Lloyd adds that he also wants to study all kinds of magic, not just support magic, so that he can come up with new spell ideas. Merlin accepts his decision. Lowen comments that he is a lot like Merlin, but Lloyd isn't sure about that, which infuriates Merlin. Merlin and Will leave the city together. They know that the threat of the new demon lord is not over yet, but they are confident that Lloyd's power will prove useful. Lloyd and his friends visit the mansion that the king gifted them. It is massive, and the team is overjoyed by everything they have experienced since befriending Lloyd. They praise him for being amazing, but Lloyd humbly says his famous line, "I'm still lacking in power." Bro still has his self-esteem issues, but his friends love and accept him just as he is.